guys, welcome back. I'm going to be getting this pinball cabinet sanded down and painted satin black tonight. We're going to do the inside, the outside, the bottom, the back, the front, all of it. It's going to be satin black when it's done. I went ahead and just a minute ago mixed up a little bit of that icing and just filled in a couple little nicks that I saw that I know are not going to sand out in the primer. There's 4 heavy coats of primer on here, but I know that some of those nicks were a little bit deeper and they were not going to sand out by just primering it. So I like to go around before I start sanding the primer and fill in these little nicks first, because if I fill them in after I sand, okay, I've already worn down the primer around it. So I'm more than likely going to break through the surface to what's underneath. Second, I don't really like filling in these little gouges with sanding dust. No matter how well you try to wipe them out, it doesn't always come out. And then also, this primer is just about a day old right now. So this filler that I use to fill in these spots, that glazing putty, will stick to this primer without having to sand it because it's not been that old of a primer. It's only a day old, so it'll stick in there, and there's gonna be such a little amount left once I'm done sanding the cabinet down that it's not gonna matter. And we're gonna spray 1 coat of an epoxy gray primer over top of this. Reason why I'm gonna do that is just to seal off anything. It'll seal off any of the body work that's left over, just make it all gray again. And then we'll put our couple coats of satin black on it. It's a single stage paint. I'll show you guys what I'm going to use. For people that are new to the channel, they can see the materials that I'm using on this. The paints from Summit Racing and all that stuff, but I'll show that to you. So I'm going to get my sander set up while this sets up for a couple more minutes. It's a little bit sticky still, and we're going to get this thing sanded down. I'll just briefly show you sanding it. I'm going to use a DA sander with 180 grit. And then I'm going to hit it with 320 grit. Okay, I'll briefly show you how I'm going to sand it. 180 grit on the sander. Now when you use this sander, electric one, air one, whatever kind you want to use, try to keep it as flat as you can on the cabinet. Like I have a little scratch right here. I don't want to take the sander and start digging it in on an angle to try to get that scratch out, because then you're going to make a big divot in your panel. Let me sand on that scratch area real quick here, and then you'll be able to see it. Let me show you. And this is what's good about this primer. See that? Now let me sand on it for a minute, and I'll show you that it disappears because we sanded it out. Okay, it's gone. But you see how we're breaking through? So that's why I'm going to use that epoxy primer, because I know I'm going to get breakthroughs like this. And I know that this is getting covered up with artwork and you're probably never going to see it, but I just want to make sure I do a really good job so that it makes the artwork, however it gets applied, if it's vinyl or whatever he's doing. I still don't know what it is because I really haven't talked to him and asked him. But anyways, I just want it to be a real nice, smooth surface for him. I don't want to have any blotches in it or anything like that. I want it to be nice and clean, so it makes it a lot easier for him to put it on. A lot of times, if you just take paint and go right over these areas, the paint could take over these areas differently than it would over the gray. So you run the potential of having like a ring right here and like a weird looking texture in your paint right there, because this is a different surface than this. So that's why we're going to use that epoxy primer to go over the whole entire cabinet and make it all gray again like it is right here. And then it'll be a nice smooth surface. The paint will take the same on the whole cabinet because the whole cabinet is one solid color. So I'm going to go ahead, turn the camera off, get this all sanded down with 180, and then I'm just going to go ahead and 320 it, and I'll show you guys what it looks like once I'm done sanding everything. Then we got to get it back in the spray booth, get it hung up, and we're going to get this thing painted. Okay, cabinet's in the spray booth. Spray booth is heating up. I actually put on a spray suit today because I'm going to wear gloves too. When you paint inside of cabinets, that overspray gets all over your arms and everything else. So if you're doing the inside of a cabinet or something like that, wear at least long sleeve shirt, something to keep the overspray off your arms, because it gets pretty nasty. I've already stirred up my epoxy primer. This is an Omni product made by PPG. It's their cheaper line. It's MP170. It's an epoxy primer. I use it as a epoxy primer over bare metal, and I also use it as a sealer. It gets mixed 2 parts epoxy primer to 1 part hardener, and then I put some reducer in it to thin it out so that it sprays smoother and lays out flatter. Now the cabinet has already been I wax and grease removed it, and I blew it off and wax and grease removed it. I have not tack clothed it off yet. We're going to do that right before I paint. The reason why I don't do it until right before I paint is I have the fans going out there, so any other debris that's in the air will land on the cabinet and we can get it wiped off. We're going to use, I use wax and grease remover in a pump bottle, but you can also use this spray away glass cleaner from Home Depot or Lowe's. I believe Home Depot had it 4 cans for $10. You can use this before you paint. You can wipe down your parts with this before you paint. You don't have to go out and buy $40, $50 gallon of wax and grease remover. This will work just as well. Maybe go over it twice with this, because this stuff tends to dry up quicker than the wax and grease remover. We're going to just use a used tack cloth today, and after I use it on this project, I'll just throw it away. What I like to do with these is kind of open them up and then kind of just ball them together like that, leave them a little loose. So we're going to mix up not a ton of this stuff because we're only doing 1 coat of it. Actually, let me get the black paint out so that I can start stirring that up. Should be enough in this gallon so I don't have to open another one, hopefully. But this is Summit Racing Hot Rod Flat Single Stage Acrylic Urethane Paint. Now this says flat. All 3 of their cans say flat right here, but on the top lid it'll say matte, satin, or flat. And this is a satin finish. So I'm going to let that stir up for a good 15 minutes while I'm mixing this, tack clothing it, and putting this on. Now this I let sit for 10 to 15 minutes in the spray booth. If you're doing it at home in your garage, you're probably going to need a good half an hour to let it sit and set up. So basically, once this is set up, you'll be able to tack cloth it if you want to. It'll be dry enough to touch to where you can tack cloth it off. So there's a 2-to-1 mix, and these measuring cups actually have a 2-to-1-to-1 ratio. They also have the 4-to-1-to-1 ratio, which is what I use for the paint. So it has both ratios that I need tonight on this cup. So let's do the 2-to-1-to-1. We'll go up to 2, and then 2 on the hardener, and then 2. It's probably going to be a little too much material. Maybe I'll go to the bottom of the 2. And with this type of stuff, I just use urethane reducer. I don't really care what manufacturer it's from. If you're doing a high-end paint job on a car and you're buying $1,000 gallon of color, then you're going to want to use their reducer. If you're using cheaper stuff like this, it doesn't matter. I mean, urethane reducer is urethane reducer. But if you're doing like collision work and you have to give it a warranty, then you have to use all the same product line. Let's say you're a collision shop and you spray PPG products. Okay, you can't use Omni and give it a warranty. You have to use their top of the line PPG products in order to give it a warranty. I don't know why it's like that, but it just is. And urethane reducer is pretty much all the same. I mean, but that's what they want, so that's what you got to do. So we are mixing this up. I'm going to go out there, tack cloth it off, and we're going to get a coat of this epoxy on. I'm starting to second guess myself if I do have enough, because I probably should put a coat inside the cabinet and underneath the cabinet. Probably going to put 2 coats of paint on the cabinet. I don't think I really need more than 2 coats. We'll see how it looks after 2 coats. See if we need a 3rd coat, but I think 2 should be sufficient, especially because I'm putting this down first. So basically this, in a sense, acts as the first coat of paint because it's sealing the surface. A lot of times if I don't use this, I end up putting 3 coats of paint on. So it's kind of like a toss-up. Which way should you do it? You know what I mean? Should you just put 3 coats of paint on and not worry about this? If you're do-it-yourself or at home, I would say, yeah, just go with the 3 coats of paint, because you're just buying the paint. You don't have to buy this product on top of it. But since I do this all the time, I have this stuff. So for me, it's easier to just use this and then put the paint over top. You can accomplish it with the paint, but you're going to use more paint. So let me get my gloves on and my respirator, and I'm going to get set up out there. We're going to go ahead and put this on. Now I'm going to want to paint inside the cabinet first, then probably the bottom, and then the sides and front. it, but I'm not going to worry about it. We'll get it with the black paint. Okay, I covered up enough of what I needed to cover up. Now I'm going to paint this cabinet a little differently than I normally would. Normally I would do a coat on the inside and a coat on the outside, bottom and everything, coat every surface on the first coat and the second coat. What we're going to do is paint inside the cabinet and inside the head and underneath the cabinet, first coat. Now I can do the outside because I have to kind of reach over the edge to try to get in there. So if I put paint on the outside side of the cabinet and I bump into it, then we're gonna have a mess. So I'll do my first coat inside of everything, then I'll come back 5 minutes later, do my second coat inside of everything and underneath, and then at that point, I can do 2 coats on the outside. So that'll help me a little bit out of not leaning on the side of the cabinet. I'm gonna get this cleaned up and then we'll be back to mix up some black. Okay, we're gonna mix up the black paint. This is a 4-to-1 mix, and we're going to put 20% reducer in it. You can go anywhere from 10 to 20%. Usually 10% is recommended. I'm going a little bit thinner to try to get it into the cracks and stuff inside the cabinet. So we're going to go 4-to-1 to 15, 20%. We'll go somewhere in the middle there. I think I might have to get another gallon of black paint out. I'm not sure yet. Might have enough. I don't know. Probably going to go through 3 cupfuls, maybe even 4. Going to use a lot of paint up. Okay, got to get this stirred up really good. I'm just going to use the other side of this stirring stick that I mixed up the epoxy with. Kind of wipe that off of there. Just use this side. On a black paint, if your stick has a little bit of paint on it that's dry, it's not going to hurt anything. I wouldn't recommend using it if you're mixing up clear coat or anything like that, but on some black paint, you're never going to notice it. So I'm going to get this stirred up real good. We're going to go out there and I'm going to try to show you me painting the inside. It's kind of hard, the camera tripod's not really tall enough to look completely in there, but I might be able to maybe, probably thought maybe I'd go through the coin door, but then again, if I put the camera in front of the coin door, it's going to get full of overspray, so probably shouldn't do that. But all right, I'm going to get the gun dried off and hooked up, and we're going to go get the first coat on. I'll do the first coat inside the cabinet, and then I'll do the second coat off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll do the 2 coats on the outside. Sometimes these things don't want to thread on. It's weird because I just used it. There we go. All right. If you guys are wondering, if you saw me, I start to spray before I start painting. I have the gun upside down and I pull the trigger and I hold it until paint starts coming out. The reason why I do that is on this cup system here, what it does is the liner that I put inside, what it does is it crinkles up. So it starts to like squeeze and it forms like a sealed bag after it's on the gun. So basically when it's on the gun, you can paint upside down, right, left, normal, it doesn't matter. On a normal gravity feed spray gun, if you don't have one of these cups with these liners, you cannot spray upside down. But with the liner and it pressurizing like that, it gives you the ability to be able to spray upside down. So that's why I hold the gun upside down when before I start spraying, is all I'm doing is taking the air out of that sleeve inside. Okay, I'm gonna give that 5 minutes. I'm gonna get the second coat on. Now I'll come back and we'll start painting the outside. Okay, both coats are done inside. Let's go out there and start putting the first coat on the cabinet. I'm gonna start on the back, sides, front. I think I have enough left in the gun to do a full coat on the outside, enough to mix up one more batch. I'm on my second batch right now. I ran out of my first batch, almost done with the inside of the main cabinet. So it went pretty far. Okay. One more coat to go. I'm gonna mix up a little bit more paint. I don't need a full cup because I did that in less than a full cup. So if I mix a full cup, I'm gonna be throwing a bunch of it away. So I'm gonna go ahead and get more mixed up, let that dry for another couple minutes, and then we're gonna put the last coat on. Now, if you guys noticed, I am overlapping my spray pattern really close together. I'm doing a 60% overlap. So what that means is if you have a 10-inch spray pattern coming out of your gun, so if it's spraying a 10-inch pattern, okay, I am going, so the first pass well, actually it's hanging off the cabinet because I'm getting that bottom edge. But anyways, if you were to go right on the edge of the cabinet and it was 10 inches, then on your next pass, you go up 4 inches. And then you have a 6-inch overlap of paint on paint as you paint. The reason why I do that, especially with this satin black, if you don't do that, you'll get spray lines in your color. And when it dries, it'll dry unevenly and you'll see spray stripes in your paint job. That also applies for like metallic paint jobs and stuff like that. So it's always good to do at least a 50% overlap. But on this, I go a little bit more just to make sure that I alleviate those stripes. So let me get this mixed up and we'll get the last coat on. This is why I wore a spray suit. Look at all that overspray. That would have been stuck to my arm. Okay, it's been drying for about 15 minutes. It's looking like it's turning out real nice. Let's go take a look at it. It's got a real nice sheen to it. Still has a little bit of blotchiness, but that's going to go away once it finally cures. So that blotchiness will go away. It's not going to matter anyways because it's getting covered up. But I think it turned out real nice. I peeled the tape off the back. All black inside, underneath. So that's pretty much it for this one. It's going to hang up in here until Friday. Friday night it's getting picked up and it'll go back to get reassembled, and then it'll be done. So what I'll do is when they post their video, I guess he said he's going to do one long video and he's going to do a bunch of time lapse in it of them tearing down the play field and putting it back together and putting the whole cabinet back together. So when that video comes out, what I'll do is I'll do like a couple minute long video, and I will put the link to his video in my description on that video that I make. So this is going to end the Whirlwind cabinet restore. This is part 3. I did make a little playlist for that, so that's on all 3 videos are on a playlist. I have a playlist going for pole position. I also just started a playlist for the Paperboy. So all 3 of those are on a playlist, so it's a little bit easier to get on the playlist, start with the first video and work your way through. So alright guys, thanks for watching. If you're liking what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, share, hit the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Any questions or comments, feel free to ask. Other than that, I will see you guys later.